Good evening, members of council, ladies and gentlemen, staff. I see that we have quorum, and I call this regular meeting for the Town of Pelham Council to order for Monday, June 4th, 2018. We will begin by singing the national anthem. Our normal starter for the national anthem, Councillor Papp, isn't available at the moment, so I would ask our clerk, Ms. Bizzato, to lead us, and I would ask all who are able to rise.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Ms. Bizzato, it's a treat to have you lead us in the national anthem. Thank you very much. Now we move to approving the agenda. It's been moved by Councillor Lane, seconded by Councillor Kersey. Be it resolved that the agenda for the June 4th, 2018 regular meeting of council be adopted. Are there any changes to the agenda? I would ask council to consider moving item up, an item of correspondence, and this is the petition 941, up to immediately following the delegation 521. May I have a mover to do that? So that's moved by Councillor Kersey. Councillor Lane, will you second that, please?
Yes.
Thank you. 941. Move up. We're going to call the question on that amendment. All those in favor? Any opposed? That amendment carries. Any other items on the agenda to change the agenda? There being none, I call the question on the amended agenda. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. As amended. Thank you. Next is disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. That is any conflicts of interest that members of council may have. Do any members have any conflicts? Councillor Kersey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a conflict. Section 14, item number 2 and number 3, specifically bylaw 4002, 2018 and 4003, 2018. It deals with the property that is owned by my wife's company, and so I declare a conflict and will be leaving the chamber.
Okay, thank you very much. That's so noted. Any other conflicts that need to be noted? Can that be noted as well, that there are no other conflicts? Thank you. Now we move to delegations. We do have a delegations. Do have a delegation, a request to Canada Post to amend River Road mailing addresses from Welland to Fenwick. We have Ms. Hadrevi, sorry, here. Please, I'm going to try and get that correct the next time. Hadrevi.
That's okay. Jennifer's
please
fine.
address council at the podium. Thank you very much for coming, and there may well be some other neighbors here as well.
Yes, that's correct. Mayor Augustin, members of Town Council, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to speak. The issue that I'm presenting for your consideration is essentially that residents of River Road in Pelham have unfairly, I think, been given and assigned the mailing address by Canada Post that is substantially different than where we actually live. For example, I live at 857 River Road, Fenwick, LOS 1C0. That would be my civic address. But my mailing address is 857 River, not River Road, Welland, not Fenwick, L3B 5 and 6, a postal code that has nothing to do with Fenwick. That disparity between the civic address and the mailing address causes numerous issues, safety concerns, confusion, difficulty, and inconvenience. It's my hope that after this brief presentation, and along with the documents that I submitted, with my presentation and the letters from, that were submitted by specific residents who had specific concerns they wanted to cite. After all those, then I'm hoping you will move to ask Canada Post officially to change our address from our mailing address Welland to our civic address. We did a petition on the street. Essentially 61.9% of the residents voted in favor of changing the address to the civic address. 21.4% voted no, and 16.7% had no response. So clearly the results for the residents that we polled were in favor of changing the mailing address to the civic address. If you voted yes, there were three main concerns. The first issue is safety. Your landline and your cell phone are both tied to your mailing address. So in the event that you have an emergency and you are unable to clarify to the emergency services that you have a Pelham River Road address, not a Welland River Road address, they will do a reverse phone lookup and find that you live in Welland. And they will dispatch their resource to the Welland River address. This is a safety issue. We don't live in Welland. We live in Pelham. So if you have a child that makes the phone call, or you start the phone call and you collapse, that resource is going to go to the wrong river road, because there is actually a river road in Welland that is 15 kilometers away from us and constantly gets mixed up with us. I would like to point to you that one resident indicated, and he's here today, that he had a break-in at his house and it took 4 hours for police to find him. Additionally, I point to a fire that occurred on River Road in the year 2007. There was some confusion as to which River Road it was referred to, so fire trucks were dispatched to actually the River Road in Pelham and the River Road in Welland. So this is an issue for any household that has young people or has aging parents. Secondly, when you change your address to, when you've moved and you're moving to River Road, and you change your address, all of the online databases are currently using the Canada Post mailing address database called Address Complete. And that is a database of mailing addresses. But what's happening is government institutions and corporations are using that as if it were validated civic addresses. So all your online ID, when you go to change all your government ID, driver's license, Nexus card, health card, all of that automatically gets defaulted to the Welland address. It is not humanly possible for you online to enter a Fenwick address anywhere. So you get issued all your government ID with your Welland address. That creates an issue if authorities are looking for you, so that's another safety issue. But further down the line, it creates issues for Elections Canada, because it's tied to the mailing, to the postal code of your driver's license, and we have one resident here who just lived with that. When you register online for Elections Canada, you get automatically deemed you are Niagara Centre, not Niagara West. You will eventually get it sorted out, but you have to find the person within Elections Canada that can manually override and put you on the correct voters list. But I find it's unfair for a basic civic right, voting, that we should have to go through so many hurdles to get it right. We pay Pelham taxes, we're located in Pelham. We would like to have the same privileges that other Fenwick residents have, and that is a Fenwick mailing address. The other issue is schools. One resident deemed that he has 3 children, 2 were permitted to go to Pelham School. The third one was deemed he had to go to Welland because he had a Welland mailing address. The man pays Pelham taxes, but he had to send his child to a Welland school because his mailing address is in Welland. Other issues, your house insurance, your car insurance, are both dictated by the postal code on your driver's license. So again, this doesn't reflect where you actually live. It reflects where Canada Post has assigned that you live. And last but not least, 2 residents indicated difficulty with getting reward points. Okay, not a huge issue, but Toyota points, Bass Pro points, Air Miles, Aeroplan, they were unable to sign on for these advantages, shopping advantages, because their proper mailing address does not exist in their case. And lastly, inconvenience. Courier deliveries, Canada Post deliveries, big box store deliveries, service calls, utility service calls. These all get mixed up with the other river road that is in Welland. I've lived here 16 months. I've had the problem at least 12 times now already. So we do find, all of the residents here who as well, that the inconvenience issue is huge. If you were to sum up all the residents who've had the issue all year to date, I think clearly we can do better. It's not rocket science, it's a mailing address. It should be easy to reflect your mailing address as where you live, not what Canada Post assigns you. If you voted no, there were 3 issues. Inconvenience and cost. People were concerned about mail forwarding. They would have to pay for mail forwarding for a year. Secondly, there was a basic resistance to change. I think that's a common one that shows up. And thirdly, for the people who've lived here the longest, they generally mail things. They bypass Canada Post entirely and they mail things to their work address, or they rent a P.O. box in town. So in closing, I'd just like to say, highlight these points. The majority of the residents do want the address changed to Fenwick. 2, the request is not unreasonable. The Fenwick LOS 1C0 address exists. Our immediate neighbors on Farr, on Church, all have the Fenwick address and they are right next to us. And thirdly, if you were to sum up all the resources that have been wasted with inconsistent deliveries, rejected deliveries, deliveries sent to the wrong area, the safety concerns, all the issues that I've raised, it's a problem that can be fixed. It's not an unreasonable request. So that's all I had to say. Thank you for time. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Appreciate that, and the supporting documents, of which there are many. Appreciate that. But it really does give council the background information they need in addition to your presentation. So thank you very much.
Perfect.
Do members of council have any questions for our presenter? We will be considering the petition immediately following. Question I have is just 2 things, I guess. You mentioned that folks who live on Farr,
Yep.
they're not this RR5 or this our rural route number. It's not 5, it's
So
3, I think.
spoke to Canada Post. Our River Road address has changed over the years. It used to be Station Main. It used to be RR3. But today our Canada Post compliant address is simply River, not River Road, not RR3, Welland, L3, B5, and 6. I asked Canada Post specifically if I should add RR3. They said it's not required. It may help, but it's not required as far as they're
So they don't
concerned.
even have the road. You just live right on the river, huh?
Well, the thought is that they drop the road so as not to confuse us with the Welland, with the River Road that is Welland.
Oh my gosh.
Sounds
I
confusing.
should add, Canada Post does this because we're on the fringe, and there are other areas within Pelham that happens in. There are Pelham residents who have a St. Catharines address. There are Pelham residents who have a Thorold address, and it happens on the fringe. And Canada Post does it because it's efficient for their mail carrier. That's the reason they do it.
And so Canada Post suggested that you come here and no.
No, Dean Allison's office.
Oh, Dean Allison's, I thought the
No,
correspondence was
Canada
you.
Post could care less. Many of us have complained.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anything further?
Thank you.
Thanks very much for your presentation. We appreciate it. Thank you. So I do have a resolution just to receive the presentation, then we'll go to the other resolution with the petition. So it has been moved by Councillor Lane, second by Councillor Durley, be it resolved the delegation by J. Hadrevi regarding a request to Canada Post to amend River Road mailing addresses from Welland to Fenwick be received for information. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. And now we had pulled up that item. So that item has been moved by Councillor Lane, seconded by Councillor Ribbiak. And this is item 941. It is the actual petition and the information you have. So it has a petition regarding a request to Canada Post to amend River Road mailing addresses from Welland to Fenwick, whereas the procedure bylaw for the Town of Pelham, bylaw 3427/2013, states that all petitions shall be formally received by resolution without debate and referred to the appropriate committee of council or town staff for subsequent report. And therefore be it resolved, the council receive a petition and correspondence from residents of River Road regarding a request to Canada Post to amend River Road mailing addresses from Welland to Fenwick, and that the petition be referred to planning staff for review and report. I thought we could actually debate it, so I apologize to council. I don't know if council want to,
I don't want to debate it.
does council not want to, there's a few things I did want to inform council of, but we'd have to suspend the rules. I could wrap it up in my mayor's report, but, Councilor Ribbiak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that if we get a report, we can obviously debate the issue when we get the report and move it forward at that point. Don't you think?
While there was some additional information I was hoping to provide, I'll put it under my mayor's report, if that's okay then. I thought, pardon?
You can still give direction.
Okay, I can still give direction.
Council can still give direction.
Council, I want to let you know that I did talk to Canada Post about this matter. Would it be okay if I were to just inform council and the community about that? So I was at a conference over the weekend, a national conference, and there was a booth there by Canada Post. And I spoke to the manager of community relations, government affairs. He's out of London, but he's well acquainted, grew up in the Niagara Peninsula, and knows about the area. He indicated a couple of things. First, that this is not unique. You probably, I think as our presenter indicated, this isn't something unique just even to this portion of our community. It's across other elements of the community. I recall in Niagara, the city of Thorold, I think, was trying to deal with a similar issue that they had, and they passed a resolution asking for Canada Post to try and rectify the situation. The manager of community relations, Mr. Patterson, indicated that they've recently assisted a couple of communities. The first is Puslinch, which is on Highway 6. Puslinch has mailing addresses in Cambridge, Guelph, and some Hamilton, and then the remainder Puslinch. I did actually speak to the mayor of Puslinch, who was at the conference as well, about it, and he said that it is a very important issue for their community as well, and that the Canada Post has been quite helpful in rejigging the areas, but it's a very long process. And they have one portion, the Cambridge portion, that's complete. The other is LaSalle, which is near Windsor, and they often get calls similar to this, but from the Windsor area. And Mr. Patterson indicated that they had been working with LaSalle to fix this issue. The goal, according to Mr. Patterson, is that their preference would be to have all addresses within the civic boundary, and that these are sort of hangovers from rural route days and those kind of things. He also indicated that it could be a multi-month process, but when they do initiate a process, that he indicated to me that they have the change of address, which is, I think, what our presenter indicated, the change of address free for a year if they follow this very specific kind of process. And I think it's called either rural addressing or civic addressing that we would ask them to change. So I give that for information to members of council and to staff. So when staff are formulating a motion, perhaps it's something that can be considered. So thank you, colleagues, for allowing me to just relay that to you. Councillor Drilly?
Yes, just one thing, a caution. It seems that Canada Post is trying to get away as much as possible from door-to-door delivery. So, in fact, if something changes, there may be a super mailbox in the middle of the river that you have to go to get your mail.
It's a boat too.
You know, that's the other issue. I too have a Welland address. I live in Pelham, but I mail Welland, and it comes under the Welland Post Office. So again, it's strictly there. Luckily, I don't have any confusion because there's only one line avenue and there's not any in Welland. So there is, but you're right, there is concern, and I think if we express that concern to Canada Post, and I'm sure the report from staff will give us some good direction in that. But again, the caution is you may lose the delivery and have to go to a super mailbox and Canada Post isn't in the habit of cleaning out snow from around them in the wintertime. So, okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Counselor. Let's see anybody else signaling. So I'm going to call the question. We'll look forward to a report coming back from planning staff for review on this issue. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you very much. We appreciate the presentation and the petition, and staff will work on it, and we'll get back to you and make sure that you're notified, that you can spread the word as you did tonight about the issue. Okay? Thank you so much. Thank you. Now we move to, thank you. Now we move to, back to the agenda under 5.3. Report from Regional Councillor. It's been moved by Councillor Durley, second by Councillor King. Be it resolved, the June 4th, 2018 report submitted by Regional Councillor Beatty be received for information. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. There was somebody that wanted to say something earlier. Maybe you could send us an email or something. We'd appreciate that. Okay, thank you. Moved by Councillor Durley, second by Councillor King. Be it resolved, the June 4th, 2018 report submitted by Regional Councillor Beatty be received for information. Questions or comments? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. Now we have adoption of minutes. It's been moved by Councillor Ribbiak, second by Councillor Durley. Be it resolved, following minutes be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. Minutes of our special council meeting of May 22nd, 2018, and of our council meeting on that evening, May 22nd. Errors or omissions? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. Now we have consent agenda items to be received in block. Are there any items that council would like to lift for separate consideration? We already dealt with one item, of course. There being none, it has been moved by Councillor Lane, second by Councillor Ribbiak. Be it resolved that the following consent agenda items be received and the recommendations therein be approved as applicable. Presentation of recommendations arising from the Policy and Priorities Committee for council approval. Be it resolved that council approve the recommendations arising from the Policy and Priorities Committee meeting dated May 22nd, 2018. We also have the minutes of approval for that meeting. We have information correspondence items, and the motion is that these items be received for information. There are a few. We have the City of Welland Report PDS 14, 2018, Review of Comments on Watershed Planning in Ontario. We also have a resolution from the City of Welland regarding school property to municipalities. The City of Port Colborne put forward a resolution regarding provincial funding for local public libraries, and also a resolution on safe drinking water training elected municipal officials. The City of Quinte West put forward a resolution that we're receiving regarding a cannabis grace period. The Ontario Good Roads Association put forward a resolution, an invitation to join the Preferred Autonomous Vehicles Test Corridor. Ann Cardis, resident of Pelham, 97 years old, put forward a thank you for the flowers in recognition of her birthday. And the Region of Niagara put forward some information correspondence. Again, large number here and large package. The information regarding the new regional official plan and boat growth management program, similar to the presentation we received last meeting. The climate change framework, development applications monitoring report from 2017 and the year end, the state of aggregate resources in the Niagara region, the waterfront investment program, and then a resolution called taxpayer affordability guidelines. There's also a letter of correspondence from the chief building official regarding the Meridian Community Center and the occupancy. And finally, we have Pelham Public Library Board minutes of April 25th and Summerfest Committee minutes of April 24th, May 1st, and May 15th, 2018 for information. Questions or comments on any of those items? I just want to highlight a couple of things on the state of aggregate resources in Niagara region, if council doesn't mind. I did ask the planner about this. important, this is an important issue for our community because of the aggregate operation in the town. And I wondered if the ANSI mapping, the Area of Natural and Scientific Interest mapping, was included. It didn't appear to be there, although Ms. Weens indicated to me just prior to the meeting that it's covered under something else. Ms. Weens, if you wouldn't mind clarifying that, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you, I think it was on page 210 in our agenda package. There is a map there that identifies natural heritage areas. And the Fonthill Came ANSI is identified as environmental protection based on M&R data from 2015. And so while it doesn't specifically call it the Fonthill Came ANSI, it is identified as environmental protection area based on the most up-to-date M&R mapping for the Came. And that is the larger ANSI that the town has always been supportive of.
Thank you very much. I wonder if the director could also clarify, there's something in this report about buffering, and the buffering that they have is new development coming close to a pit expansion. But I would, in our case, the threat is the other way around, that a new pit would go close to new or existing development. Maybe the director can comment.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, through you, any new pit or an expansion to an existing pit is required to meet the buffering requirements that are laid out in the Aggregate Resources Act. And they're pretty significant, between 500 meters and 1,000 meters, depending on the type of adjacent land use. So those are things that are already provided for in terms of buffering measures. What this is doing is suggesting that if there is new development that comes alongside a pit, then we should also be considering the same kind of reciprocal buffering, I guess, in terms of protecting the aggregate resource as well. So that's what this is meant to address.
Great, thank you. And then there's also, I believe it's in the report, some clarity required from a new pit versus an expansion, and what an expansion means. I don't know if there's any comment on that, or if the director can work with planning staff at the region on that particular matter.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you, those are kind of defined terms, again, under the Aggregate Resources Act in terms of expansion of an existing pit. So those would be things that we would look at, and again, any kind of new pit that we would foresee is treated certainly the same as an expansion to an existing pit.
Okay, great, thank you very much. I appreciate that. The final thing I'll say, just to, if council's wondering where the taxpayer affordability guidelines came from, it's really the remnant of the motion that started way back in March that was presented, and all of the resolutions about Pelham were removed. So all it's saying is that all municipalities, the region is suggesting that all municipalities should follow a taxpayer affordability guidelines, and they've dropped all reference to Pelham. So if council is prepared, I am ready to call the question, and I appreciate that. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you very much. Next, we do have my report. It's a bit of a lengthy report. I wasn't able to put in a report last meeting, so just I'll do some highlights of the information. Very pleased, thanks to Councillor Rybak for really his first duty as Deputy Mayor to assist in raising of the flag for autism on the 3rd of April, and raising awareness about autism and the growing health issue in the Niagara Peninsula. So thank you very much for that. I had the pleasure of touring along with Ms. Van Ravensway, and thank you, Councillor Kersey, for really doing the tour. Our Member of Parliament for Niagara Centre, Vance Badaway, that was on the 13th of April. We are also talking about transit and transit funding. Very pleased to be along with Councillor Durley, Papp, Accursi, and Lane. Please forgive me, Councillor Lane, for excluding your name in the report. Maybe that can be added at the Fonthill Bandshell Summer Concert announcement at Lookout Ridge on the 19th of April. Staff were there as well. Very exciting lineup for Pelham in the Fonthill Bandshell. And I do note that the supper market is starting this Thursday, and the farmers market started a few weeks ago as well. Very pleased to participate in the Community Cleanup Day on the 21st of April. Thank you very much to the hundreds of individuals who helped clean up the town through those many days of involvement. Thanks to the Kinsmen for their home show. Of course, I was pleased to attend, as many members of council were as well. And they continue to support not only community businesses with their home show, but also community initiatives like Pelham Cares. And we look forward to them hosting the event next year in the New Meridian Community Center. I want to congratulate Councillor Accursi for helping organize, and Bill Gibson for presenting at the Pelham Business Association meeting at Peter Piper's Pub on the 25th of April 2018. Councillor Papp and Ribiak were also there as well, and really just informing the business community about the excitement that's going on there, answering any and all questions about that. I was also invited to speak a little bit, and we informed them about the zoning bylaw that encouraged them to take a look at that zoning bylaw, which when it comes forward later on this year. Pleased and thanks to staff and volunteers for organizing the tree planting on the 27th of April. We had students from St. Anne, Wellington Heights, St. Alexander School in Pelham who planted trees at Centennial Park. I walked by the other day. They're doing very, very well. Noticed that staff protected them with some mulch, and they also planted some large tulip trees here as well. So thanks very much to staff for organizing the event. It was a great, great event. Was present at a new business opening, so congratulations to Nick and Nick at the new Sunset Grill restaurant in Fonthill. They had their grand opening on May 5th, and I was pleased to offer best wishes to them on behalf of council, and I'd encourage the community to check them out. The Art Festival, of course, was held on the 11th of May, and this was the 32nd year for this annual event. It's amazing, something that started all those years ago, raising money for the library in its infancy. Now the library is something that's there for a long time, but the Pelham Art Festival continues. More than 75 artists and other from across the province, and it's very, very impressive that those volunteers continue to support the Pelham Library and other charities. So we appreciate that, and I see Mr. Weaver here, who no doubt also appreciates, as a CEO of the library, those funds and the interaction that he has with the Art Festival. We look forward to their hosting the 33rd Art Festival in the new community center, and very excited because one of the organizers was talking about she knows exactly how many more feet bigger the rink is, and how many more booths she can get in, etc. So they're very, very excited about this. Congratulations to the fabulous Fenwick Lions for their carnival. They had their carnival weekend on the 25th of May, a couple weekends ago. Very pleased to join Councillor Durley Lane and Councillors Durley, Lane, and King in the annual parade as part of the carnival. Congratulations to the Lion and Lioness for an amazing carnival weekend. They had a new amusement provider, and it was an outstanding event. Congratulations to them. They had great weather, so I hope they were able to make a considerable amount of money so that they can give those funds to community initiatives. So congratulations to them. Finally, in my report this time is information about the 10th annual Pelham Mayor's Gala. It was held at Lookout Point Country Club on the 26th of May. I want to thank sponsors, participants, and volunteers for raising more than $26,000 at this event. I'm very, very pleased that we were able to support Pelham Cares toward their Connecting Kids program, the Pelham Raiders Minor Lacrosse for extra training and equipment to them as they move back to the community, Big Brothers Big Sisters of South Niagara for the Pelham Peer program in local schools, and Wellington Heights Public School toward new playground equipment for grades 4 to 8, because you'll recall that they're a school that went from J to 3, or K to 3, and now they need equipment for grades 4 to 8. I want to thank Councillor Papp and staff who were in attendance for attending. It was you can see some of the pictures there perhaps, amazing magic by Nick Wallace, and deep appreciation to Jordan and our Mammalini and the Gala Committee for organizing the event. And I'm just delighted that over the last 10 years we've raised more than $275,000 for various groups across the community, local charities, service clubs, not-for-profits, more than 30 of them. And this also includes establishing the Pelham Community Fund with the Niagara Community Foundation, and those funds will stay there in perpetuity. So thanks very much to the community for assisting with this and always supporting it through the years. It's always a sold-out show, and all those that organized it this year, thank you very much. That's my report. Unless there's any other errors or questions from council, I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, colleagues. That motion was moved by Councillor Kersey, second by Councillor Lane to receive it. Now we move on to reports. It has been moved by Councillor Lane, second by Councillor Kersey. Be it resolved, the council received the 2018 Library Capital Request Report, and the council approved the 2018 Library Capital Request of $36,000. Questions, comments to this report? Going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. We look forward to the work being done at the library. It's been moved by Councillor Lane, second by Councillor King. Be it resolved, the council received the June 4th, 2018 Poth Street culvert failure, the 2018 proposed plan report, and the council approved the funding of a detailed design by Spreet and Associates using what we call red circled funds. We're going to have to come up with a different name for that. Questions or comments to the report? Councillor Durley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This has gone on a long time, and the arguments that were put forward were tossed about, and a lot of confusion resulted. I just wonder if we could do some kind of a how might we, so that this doesn't happen again. Like, there's no reason for something like this to go from $1.5 million to $350,000. But we didn't get all the answers at first, and we were looking at information that really was incomplete. So I think we need to make efforts to make sure that this doesn't happen again. It was a big waste of time and a long time not having the road open for residents that are there. So I'm quite disappointed that it took this long.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Others? Councillor Rubiak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to comment that I'm pleased that there's something in front of us that represents good progress toward reopening Poth. So I'm pleased that this is here. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much. Any others? My question to the director, Madam Director, you've outlined a schedule here, and you're saying that. Can you just run through that? A detailed design, a revised construction estimate by mid-June, so we don't really know the number, although that Mr. Spreet kind of gave us a number when he was here. And if you can just outline council approval, et cetera. So we're hoping that it's going to be next meeting or the meeting after.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. This timing was provided to us by Spreet, who felt comfortable, provided we don't have anything unexpected. He hoped that he could apply previous designs or versions of previous designs to this design, hence the pretty advanced timing to bring a final design by mid-June. Our challenge here is that the schedule for council meetings, if we don't get our report in and finalized on the agenda by the agenda deadline, which is before June 18th, then we might have to wait until July. And at this point, I can't get a guaranteed date from him. As of today, he called me and said is some challenge because it appears to be a narrower road allowance than he had thought from the survey information when he reviewed it. So he needs some more survey work done, and we need to make sure we're not getting into custom length pipes because the road allowance won't allow for a full length pipe. These are the kind of complications that come up during design. It's not a roadblock, but the kind of things that would take it from a June to a July date. So that's why we're not positive, but he had thought if things go smoothly by mid-June and we get on the agenda in time, we could have that design done and a revised construction estimate, which is really what we need to go forward. He would be much more confident to provide that once he's got design done. With that, then, we would bring it to council for approval for the funds to go to tender. The other option is to go to tender without that approval, making sure it's clear in the tender documents that this might not be awarded depending on the amount, but that way we can really bring back a solid construction estimate based on the actual tenders that are received rather than a construction estimate from an engineer. And our tendering takes about, let's say, 4 weeks at the least to process, depending on how that's administered through the town. In parallel, at the same time, we would have the design complete, we could start applying for our fisheries, our fish permit and our permit through the MPCA. And then provided all that comes together and we tender and the tender amount is reasonable and we have that approval from council, we can bring all that back. And the construction length of time is anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks of road closure. So kind of working forward, it really depends on whether we hit that June meeting or July meeting, but it's definitely possible this summer.
Okay, thank you very much. Just asking the clerk whether we have a committee meeting on July 3rd. She's writing an answer, but maybe she can give it verbally.
Through Mr. Mayor, we have a scheduled public meeting under the Planning Act on July the 3rd. Council is scheduled for July 16th, but there is no committee scheduled during the summer months.
Okay, thank you. I would just, if council is amenable, if we're going to have a public meeting on the 3rd of July anyways, we could call a special council meeting. If we miss the June 18th, we could call a special council meeting for this sole purpose on July 3rd. Would council be okay with that? Okay. So let's, don't let that hold you up. We'll see if we can get this moving. Time is of the essence, so. Anything else from members of council? Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, and we'll look forward to understanding when that's coming back to us and whether we need a special meeting for that purpose or not. Thank you. Next on the agenda is custodial services for the Meridian Community Center. It's been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Ribbiak. The council approved the reallocation of funds as described to facilities contract services in order to outsource custodial services for the Meridian Community Center. Councillor King, Councillor Ribbiak, do you want to go first on this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's always a concern when you outsource that an outsider doesn't have the same vested interest in a facility that our own staff would have. But looking at the hard numbers, I think that it only makes sense to move forward to outsource those services. And those are my comments.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Ribbiak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and let me just say that while I seconded the motion, I did so because obviously we need to put this on the table to talk about, and I didn't do it because I necessarily agree with the recommendation, and in fact I'm opposed to this motion. I will be voting against it, and if you indulge me, I will try to give all the reasons why I believe that this is the wrong way to go. So with that, let me begin by saying that I know that contracting out work may often be the best way of meeting some productivity or maintenance objectives, and it is an acceptable position on the spectrum of ways of acquiring labor when needed. But contracting out has its place, and to my mind, this is not the place. First of all, the work is not appropriate, in my mind, to be contracted out. It is regular, full-time work, required 7 days a week, in effect, requires skills that are generally available or at least learnable through the employer, and it's a central element, and this work is a central element to the function of operating our community center in an efficient and effective way. This is not work which is temporary or intermittent, required infrequently or irregularly, requiring specific skills that are not generally available, or peripheral to the principal objective of the operation. These factors might have supported contracting out. I would say, Mr. Mayor, that the central business of the community center is the presentation of its facility to the residents that want to use it. And this is why I feel that the custodial work is in fact far more central to this operation than it might be to a different kind of operation in which kind of cleaning the floors might be an important thing to do, but it's not central to the function. So that's why I say that it's not appropriate work to be contracted out. Second, and this I think reflects some of the thoughts that my colleague, Councillor King, has suggested, it's highly unlikely that the work will be done by contracted labor as well as employees who are well-trained, well-managed, well-led, highly motivated by a sense of ownership of and pride in their facility. With contractors, we will not have the benefit of the loyalty, initiative, creativity, work ethic, reliability, team support that employees bring to their job, particularly in work systems like the one that we've been developing over the last number of years, that place as much reliance as we do on our employees participating in their work more deeply by taking responsibility for decision-making and creating improvement that gets our work done better, faster, and less expensively. So we're not likely to get those kinds of benefits from contractors, at least nearly to the extent that we would from employees. Thirdly, if we contract out this work, we might spend less money, but I doubt we will get the value for the money. The money we pay a contractor will go not only to lower wages and benefits costs than we would pay, but to someone else's administrative costs and profit margin. We'll get what we pay for, and the contractor will get what he pays for. And in this case, likely less skill, less reliability, less creativity and initiative, fewer hours, more turnover in the contracted workforce than we would experience with our own employees. And fourth, just now at the outset of our experience with the Meridian Community Center, we have not yet had any experience with the work in question, and we don't know all of the challenges and circumstances with which the work will contend. So we are not yet, in my mind, Mr. Mayor, in a position to specify a contract adequately. And therefore, I think it is premature to consider contracting out this work today. Now, we've worked hard to create the best facility we can afford, both in design and in its construction. I think we would not want to operate the facility with any less sense of quality. We would want to operate the facility the best way that we can as well. So I believe that we will do better with our resources by staying the course we charted when we accepted the operating pro forma and when we budgeted accordingly. And I don't believe this is the time to do otherwise. I think this is the time to stay the course, do the work as we intended to do it, learn from it, and then perhaps subsequently make some decisions based on what we have learned, but we don't know enough yet to really do it well. So I'm not going to support the recommendation as presented, and I will vote against it. I encourage colleagues to do the same. And finally, thank you for your patience in hearing me out. I will be happy to answer any questions anyone might have with what I have presented. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor. Others? Other debate? Councillor Lane?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm kind of torn on this one. Before, I know I spoke against contracting out because I think that we have to make a presentation that the public will be proud of, and I think possibly, as Councilor Ribbiak said, it can only be done with our own staff. At the same time, dollars and cents come into any picture, and it's a sizable savings if it's contracted out and done properly. So, like I say, I'm kind of torn on it, but I would like to see the possibility of a contract out, let's say for a 6-month period, to see how it would perform, if it measures up, and go forward with that. But to sign a long-term contract for contracting out, I don't think I would be in favor of doing that. But certainly for the balance of this calendar year, for example, I would be in favor of contracting out, seeing where it gets us, and then making a permanent decision at that time. If it's not measuring up, then certainly I would be in favor of a situation where we did it in-house. That's my position on it.
All right, thank you very much. I believe it's not a long term. If you don't mind, Counselor, I'd like to get the clarity from the
Certainly.
Director. Madam Director, is the term of the contract that you're proposing, term, what's the term of that? Is it 6 months, a year?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm just checking to see. I don't have that answer.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't see it. If you bear with me, give me 30 seconds to look through it.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, Counselor Lane? Counselor Kersey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I think I'd like to speak to some of the comments that Councillor Rubiak has brought forward. First of all, central to the operation of that facility has very little to do with custodial services and more about programs and welcoming the community and having it a space that is available to all aspects of our community. Custodial services are important as an ancillary service to maintain the building in a presentable format. Your implications and some of the statements that were made by Councilor Ribiak, Mr. Mayor, imply that custodial services that are acquired from an outside firm will be somehow less successful, less professional than those that can be delivered by an in-house staff. I think that that's rather presumptuous in making that statement. The firms that were successful, or the firm that was successful, went through a rigorous screening process. Points were assigned during the RFP evaluation process. The references were checked, I'm sure. And it's not as if we hired somebody off the street with no record or no history. So I'm quite comfortable that the professional custodial service that we would be hiring would deliver exactly what we expect. Thirdly, I think we have a facilities manager who is very competent, and she will be responsible for contract administration. And the standards to which the contractor has responded and included in their RFP response, I presume has been attached to their contract or will be attached to their contract, which very clearly will specify the quality of the work, the number of workers, the hours to be put in, and what the expectations are of the town. So it's not as if we would be operating in a vacuum. We would have specified, and I'm trusting staff has done this, that in the call for the RFP, they would have specified very clearly the type of expectations we have for the operation and cleanliness of that building. So I'm quite comfortable that either A, the contractor will deliver, or B, that our facilities manager will come back to us and say, the contractor's not living up to their obligations and we need to move on. So I'm sure that if we do sign a contract, if the contractor does not live up to the type of expectations we have and makes cleanliness central to the operations, then we have the facility to get rid of them if need be. So I think at this point, at this juncture, it is very important, well, we've specified a pro forma. That pro forma was put forward on best efforts and best available information at the time. We now have an opportunity to save some $30,000, and there's nothing included in these estimates with respect to other administrative costs that would be involved on hiring people and all of this sort of stuff that would only inflate that. And when these employees are longer-term employees and exceed the 700 hours or whatever it is, the threshold, all of a sudden OMERS kicks in and that adds more dollars to the bottom line. So I think we have an opportunity at the inception of this building to save $30,000, Mr. Mayor. I think now's the time to put money in the bank, because there may be some surprises down the road where there'll be variances in the pro forma that are not in our favor, and it would be great to have that extra $30,000 such that the bottom line of the pro forma still comes to fruition. So I'm all for saving money going in, and let's take this step, Mr. Mayor. When I look around at some of the major buildings in this region, and I think the trend is across the province, contracting out of custodial service is the rigueur these days. I believe the new police building has contracted out all its janitorial services. The reason being is they get a quality job. It's easy to administer the contract if the contract's handled properly. So I certainly will be supporting the recommendation contained in this report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Anyone else for the first time on this issue? Counselor King signaled that she wanted to add something to her comments. Counselor King?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't actually have a comment. I have a question
Okay.
to the director. The other town facilities, such as the municipal office, the library, Old Town Hall, both libraries, I should say, are those contracted, or is the janitorial conducted by staff?
Comancio?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, janitorial is typically conducted by staff. We have one custodian, part-time custodian, who works on staff here and circulates through the other facilities.
But we had contractors here this evening though, right?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we do when that custodian is on vacation, or at this time, she's actually been reallocated for the short term to help out with the community center now that we've got substantial or partial occupancy, substantial completion. Then she's helping out there to backfill that. We've just hired someone within budget to backfill her needs here at town hall and fire halls and so on. But typically, it's by our one part-time custodian.
Okay, thank you. And the answer for Counselor Lane?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not able to access the RFP. The first version of it doesn't have a term defined, and I don't think that was changed in the second version.
CEO is,
My understanding it's a one-year contract, Mr. Mayor, with an option to extend for up to 3 years. So we approached it as being a pilot for 1 year, and then we would review, and if it's a good service, we would continue. If not, we would either come back to council with a recommendation to hire, or we would go back out and find another company.
okay, thank you. Anything further? Anyone else for a first-time? Counselor Ribbiak, if not?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I just want to clarify, I guess, some of what I had said earlier in light of Councillor Kersey's comments with regard to those. First of all, I understand and believe fully that Councillor Kersey's description of me as presumptuous was not meant to be personal. It was meant to describe, I think, that I had presumed a few things in what I had commented, and I accepted in that spirit, and I'm sure that's...
Counselor Kersey, will you clarify that for the counselor?
Sorry?
Will you clarify that for the counselor?
There's no need,
Is that the
Mr. Mayor.
case?
I fully trust that
Okay,
there was nothing
thank you.
personal meant there. I just
Okay,
wanted to be
thank
sure.
you.
Nothing personal, Councillor Ribbiak.
Yeah, of course, I knew that.
Thank you.
I knew that. The reason why I had indicated that custodial work is at the core of the function, I was referring to the function of presenting the building, the facility. The programming and all other activities that will go on within the community center are, of course, why we put the community center together. But the venue itself is the business of the department, and that's what the department needs to make available in a safe, efficient, and clean way for all of its users, including those of the municipality that present programs there. So the programming I see as being the activities of the clients of the building itself needs to be maintained in a particular way, and core to that, I think, is the ability of the department to present a building that meets all of the standards that people would expect, and that would create the kind of impression that I think we would all want to have there. So that I think is key to the difference in our understanding. I agree with you that the things that happen there will be the most important contribution that would have been made by the building. But the building itself is what we're talking about, and the cost of the building itself, and central to that is our ability to keep it in good trim. And I do agree with you that I'm all for saving money. I don't think that we will save much money, however, if we go down this road, are unable to do it as well as we can, that we find that there are areas that we want to improve on and therefore need to make changes. I think we will have done some damage, and that at the end of the day, going too fast down this road might in fact cost us rather than save us. So I'm a little concerned about that. So I continue to believe that this is not the right way to go, and I will continue to vote against it, but I appreciate the opportunity to correct some of those comments that were made.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Drewley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I'm caught between a rock and a hard place in this. Yes, it's going to save some money, but this is going to be a heavy-use building. And in fact, not only do we need to make sure that it's clean and tidy and usable, we also need to keep an eye out for little things that may happen. I've been in other new buildings before where little things were neglected and they became big things. And I think that if in fact we have a staff member that is keen and again takes some ownership of this, just because it is part of my town and part of my job, and I have pride in this, that there will be a much more conscientious effort to maintain the building at a standard, not just cleaning it. That's not what I'm talking about with custodial, because things are going to happen in there. There's going to be, there's going to be skates being, moved around. There's going to be pucks hitting things. There's going to be minor things. And if we fix things when they're minor, certainly going to save some money in the long run. So I'm tending towards suggesting we should, at least to start, and again, it's the grand opening is an important thing, and I think we have to put our best foot forward, and I think by using town staff, having a conscientious effort to see that everything remains beautiful and functional, I think it's a good start to go with our own people first, and in fact, if that proves to be not working, then we can certainly look to plan B at another time, and that's my opinion. So again, listening to both arguments, I've been in buildings that, similar to the use that this is going to get, that as I said, we're brand new. There's a start, little thing happens, and the next time I went into that building, that little thing was a big thing. And if you look at that thing now, it still hasn't been fixed, and it's been 10 years. So, in my opinion, we need our own eyes on what's going on there. So.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Any other councillors? I too appreciate the comments of council colleagues and the discussion, the debate that we're having on this issue, and I know it's something that we've been talking around this table for some time. What we're entering into in this, and we had a lot of discussion about this as well, is the use and the programs and things that are going to be done in that facility, and to make this facility a facility where memories matter happen and are remembered, a place for our champions. And of course, we want to put the best foot forward. We want to have the best Gold Star facility. But we also are going into it not knowing exactly how that's going to function. So in some of the facilities like this building where we've had it for and used it for a number of years, you kind of know generally what that's going to look like, and you know, those are services that can be done and allocated, etc. But when it comes to a new facility, one doesn't have that certainty. And I think that's why when we looked at some of the staffing for the new facility outside of janitorial services, some of those staff aren't necessarily that full-time go into it, but there are some temporary positions there because we don't know, and we want to be flexible and we want to be nimble in the way that we approach this, that if there's an event coming in and it's many more events than we thought, we want to be able to get the staff there, and if there aren't the events there, we want to make sure that those staff aren't there unnecessarily. So if there was an option before us to say that we could do some sort of temporary contract pilot where the staff would be our staff, and maybe a year going into this, I think we could look long and hard at that. But I'll say the opposite, or the juxtaposition proposal before us is one in which we would hire the staff person or the staff that was required, and it's sort of a you're hired or you're not hired sort of thing, right? And so when looking at that, I like the idea of a pilot project with a tendered out contract, a 1-year contract with an option to extend if it's working, but that also means there's an option not to extend if it's not working. I think this allows us the flexibility that we spoke about earlier when we were doing the staffing component of the new community center. It also allows the job to be done. If we get to the point where a year from now, we say, you know what, this is something that we do definitely need to do with our, I'm pointing at the counselor, but because you made the point so forcefully, but something we do need our own staff to do, we need the eyes on everything, then that's something that council can consider. And if we get to the point where, you know what, this is working, we can extend. So I like it because it allows that flexibility. Now, Councillor Durley, you did raise some points, and others as well, about the facility. We do want to have eyes on, we want to have the best foot forward. I think the staff that are going to be operating and serving the community in this facility, the ones I've talked to are very, very excited about it. And I know they would go above and beyond. And so, although it may not be in somebody's somebody's role necessarily to fix up that mark or tell somebody else about that puck mark that's there, I believe that given the staff, the excellent staff that we have and the care that they have about this facility, that they would make the extra effort and do it. So I'm not as concerned about the janitorial staff doing that. I think the other staff that are going to be there are going to be those eyes on. But I do think with the flexibility that's before us, with the 1-year contract, we can also determine whether that occurred, whether the crystal ball that we try to have here this evening is actually foretelling the future or not. So for those reasons, I am supportive of the recommendation that's before us this evening. I don't know if there's anybody else that would like to comment. I am prepared to call the question. Councillor Papp? Thank you.
Very briefly and quickly, I'm sorry being late, but just to offer some background experience from other venues in which I've been involved in, where large facilities of this size have been operated by a third party. And it has been done along the same lines, that after this building was open, after 1 year was determined whether or not the local municipality would continue looking after the building or whether they would continue with the third party. So the metrics of measurement of success will determine whether we are meeting those standards of cleanliness, safety, etc. So I appreciate saving money, but also I think we also want to make sure this building has been built, and it's been said, I think, many times for 40, 50 years. So in order to do that, you have to make sure that the best protective or services are put into place. So I too will be supporting this proposal with the understanding that after 12 months, we'll all have a better understanding of where the building will be at that point. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Unless there's any other speakers to the motion, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. Good to have the debate. Thank you very much. Now we move to presentation consideration of bylaws. These are separated, Councillor Kersey, so that you can excuse yourself on the item for which you have a conflict. It's been moved by Councillor Kersey, second by Councillor Lane. Be it resolved, the Council of the Town of Pelham, having given due consideration to the following bylaw, do now read a first, second, and third time and do pass the same, and the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and seal this bylaw, bylaw 4001, 2018, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a development agreement with Kaiser and Associates and Jasper Michael Pelham. Comments or questions to the motion? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Durley, second by Councillor King. Be it resolved, the Council of the Town of Pelham, having given due consideration to the following bylaws, do now read a first, second, and third time and do pass the same, and the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and seal the bylaws. Bylaw 4002, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 1136 as amended for lands located on the north side of Port Robinson Road, lying east of Lametti Drive, municipally known as 163 Port Robinson Road, from an agricultural A zone to a site-specific residential multiple 1 zone, RM2-285 zone. And bylaw 4003, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a site plan agreement for the lands located at 163 Port Robinson Road. Questions or comments? Councillor Lane?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wonder if these could be split into number 2 and number 3 as separate?
Yes, let's do that. So voting on what's on the agenda as number 2, so bylaw 4002 first. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. And now voting on bylaw 4003, which is listed on the agenda as bylaw number 3. I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Right, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry. You would like to speak to it. I apologize. Go ahead, Councillor.
Yes, thank you. As stated earlier, this particular one came up, and I had some concerns in regards to the parking allocation on this. I see that there's nothing changed with the parking allocation as it was, excuse me, as it was then and as it is now. So based on that and the fact that there are not the required number of parking spots, I will not be supporting this particular bylaw.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor. Anyone else wanting to speak to the bylaw? There being none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? The bylaw carries. Thank you. If someone could get Councillor Kersey, please. In the meantime, as he's coming back into the room, I will read the confirming bylaw. It's been moved by Councillor King, second by Councillor Durley. Be it resolved, following bylaw be read a first, second, third time and passed, being bylaw 4004, a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of Council of the Town of Pelham at its regular meeting held on the 4th day of June, 2018. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. And it has been moved by Councillor Durley, second by Councillor King. Be it resolved, this regular meeting of council be adjourned until the next regular meeting scheduled for June 18th, 2018 at 6:30. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Let's take a 5-minute break.